Okay, Letitia James. Oh, how the turntables on Letitia James. And I love this for reasons not just for retribution, not just because she's getting hers now, but for a much deeper and more profound reason. And that reason is, if we win an election, like Donald Trump won the election in November, and we use that victory as not really an excuse, but we just become so busy with implementing our agenda after that victory that we forget to enact justice for wrongdoings that were committed against, whether it's Trump, whether it's conservatives at large, whether it's individuals, some of which are watching the show, J6 defendants, pro-lifers. If we neglect to serve justice to those who deliberately harmed us, then it allows that to happen again. It emboldens and empowers those who committed those wrongdoings to do it again. And what's happening today, as Letitia James has now been referred to the Department of Justice for mortgage fraud, this is actual justice. This is not vindication for Letitia James. This is not punishing her. This is not simply reversing the lawfare that she used on Trump and aiming it back at her just to get back at her. No, this is justice. And it's very, very necessary if we want the American people to feel confident that our country is not only fair, but that our rule of law is not so corrupt that we should avoid it. So let me tell you what's happening here. First of all, what happened to President Trump at the hands of Letitia James? Letitia James campaigned on imprisoning Trump. That was why she said you should vote for her. She said, I will put Trump in prison by any means necessary, which is obviously a malicious and unjust thing to do. You're not supposed to, as a public official, go on a fishing expedition. You're not supposed to convict an individual in your eye and then go around and look for reasons to put that person in prison. That's wrong. By almost everyone's standards, except those on the very fringes of the radical left, it's just wrong. Common sense tells you that it's wrong. Natural law informs you that it's wrong. And yet, Letitia James did exactly what she campaigned on doing. She dug through Trump's finances and said, hey, let's get him on business fraud, she said. Now, the context of this is, as a real estate investor, President Trump took out loans. This is how it works. But the allegation from Letitia James was that he inflated his own net worth and the value of his assets in order to obtain loans. Specifically, her allegation was that Trump inflated the value of Mar-a-Lago in order to obtain loans from banks in New York. Now, the banks in New York, it is worth noting here, did their own research, and they did not feel that they were being defrauded by how President Trump valued Mar-a-Lago. Also worth noting here that Trump paid back the loans that he had secured. The bank was happy. Nobody was angry. There was no victims in this situation. It was nothing. It was just real estate investors getting loans, paying them back. Banks were fine. Trump was fine. And yet a radical leftist judge ruled unilaterally that actually, years later, by the way, that actually Mar-a-Lago wasn't worth the $18 to $27.6 million that Trump had estimated, or that he had valued it at, that actually Mar-a-Lago was only worth, what was it, $5 million or some ridiculously small number at the time. And so Trump was found guilty in this civil lawsuit and ordered to pay upwards of $400 million, again, on business fraud. Now, he hasn't paid that. And this is all kind of on hold because he then won the election as president of the United States. And that begs the question, well, what happens to this kind of lawsuit? The point of this, and that's still up in the air, by the way, the point of all of this is, first of all, this happens all the time in real estate. That's real estate investors often, I would call it, exaggerate the value of their assets in order to secure loans. That's why the banks do their own independent research. They do, in fact, rigorous research for a reason, to make sure that the person who might be exaggerating the value of their assets actually has the capacity to pay back the loan. But that should be the real determining factor, is, does this person have the capacity to pay back the loan? And the best way to determine that is, did he pay back the loan? And the answer to that is yes, he did. So again, there's no crime here. There was no victim. It's an utterly stupid fishing expedition that Letitia James campaigned on. She was just trying to get Trump because she hated Trump. So now fast forward to today, Letitia James is being accused of actual, real mortgage fraud. This is from the New York Post, who broke the story. And I quote, according to a letter obtained by the Post, James, who draws an annual salary of $220,000, allegedly falsified records in order to get sweetheart home loans for a Virginia property she claimed as her principal residence in 2023 while she was still serving as a New York State prosecutor. The letter, penned by Federal Housing Finance Agency Director William Pulte to Attorney General Pam Bondi and Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, also claims James purchased a 5-family dwelling in Brooklyn in February of 2001 that she consistently misrepresented as having only 4 units, both in building permit applications and mortgage documents. Pulte included several documents in the letter that also showed James purchased a property in 1983 and in 2000, co-signed by her father, but falsely listed the pair as husband and wife. This referral is now in front of the Department of Justice, and it seems to me that this is a real crime defrauding the government, defrauding banks in order to not pay taxes. This is a real crime. And see, this is not about vindication. You can kind of laugh, and you're probably human if you laugh. I kind of said, haha. These people are bad people, right? Letitia James going on a fishing expedition of Trump shows that she has bad moral character. That is an immoral thing to do. So should it surprise us that she's also engaged in other immoral acts? Doesn't surprise me. But here's why it's important. It's important because if Donald Trump wants to secure not only his individual legacy, but the legacy of the Make America Great Again movement after his administration, after he's out of office, if he wants the passion and the demand for accountability that comes from the MAGA movement to live on, and it should, and I hope it does, then he will need to deliver in these 4 years in his administration 3 things. He will need to deliver perp walks. And I will contrast this with 2016 when he spent his entire campaign saying, lock her up, and then Hillary Clinton walked free. She never saw a day inside a prison cell. We can't have that happen again. We need actual justice for people who committed crimes against Trump and crimes against people in the Trump orb, crimes against conservatives, journalists, Catholics, pro-lifers, January 6th defendants. We need actual perp walks to show us that accountability is not just a word on a paper, it's an action. That's number 1. Number 2, we will need to see a reverse in the lawfare. Not retaliation, not vengeance, but securing justice. Because what the left did or has done in the past 5 years since President Trump left office, what they have done, after his first term, what they have done is they use these local prosecutors to target Trump, whether that was Fani Willis in Georgia, whether that's Letitia James in New York. They have used these local prosecutors to bring cases against Trump purely, not because there's a real case there's not in any of these cases, but just to bog him down in unfair prosecutions, to cost him money, to take him off the campaign trail, and in their hopes and dreams to put him behind prison bars unjustly. And the only way that that's going to be stopped is if Republicans, and this can be at the federal level, this can also be at the state and local level, if Republican prosecutors, district attorneys, Republican state attorney generals, and even the Attorney General of the United States, Pam Bondi, if they actually bring cases against Democrats who deserve it. And that's the difference, of course, between the two, is President Trump did not deserve to be prosecuted for any of the things that he was subject to. Democrat politicians do deserve to be prosecuted because they are committing crimes. And the only way we're going to stop this lawfare against President Trump is if Republican prosecutors, state attorneys general, and even the Department of Justice starts bringing these cases against Democrat politicians for their wrongdoing. And that's what we're seeing happen right here. Again, it's not retaliation. It's not vengeance. It is actual justice. And if we don't do this, by the way, if the Trump administration doesn't do this, if Republican state attorneys general don't do this, if local prosecutors in red districts don't do this, then the implication of that, or the consequence of that, is President Trump is going to get clobbered by lawfare. because there's more of it coming from the left. This was not something that happened in between his two administrations and now it's gone. No. This is an ongoing strategy that was actually voiced by a Democratic congresswoman named Laura Friedman. She's out of California. She admitted that this lawfare is this is the resistance. This is how they're going to subvert President Trump's second term in office. Take a listen to this.
Every single week, we have a litigation working group where a large group of us, and I'm talking there's maybe 75 members of the House, sit down every single week with the AGs to talk about legal strategy. This is all going on every single week behind the scenes. It is nonstop talk, nonstop introduction of bills and legislation, nonstop being on social media as much as we can without being throttled and without the crazy analytics, and doing all these things. Every single week, we have a litigation working group.
Every single week, we have a litigation working group, she said. Democrat attorney generals get together to plot how they are going to target Trump. This is what we've been talking about. This is the new resistance. It's not exactly the same as the Black Lives Matter movement. It's not exactly the same as Antifa. It's not exactly the same as the assassins that tried to murder the president of the United States. This is the new resistance. They are fighting against Trump, and they are using the courts as their weapon. And the only way that the Trump administration stops this is by doing exactly what Attorney General Pam Bondi hopefully will do, since she got this referral, which is bring a case against Letitia James, who is one of the most prominent figures, the face, if you will, representing lawfare against President Trump. The third thing that the Trump administration needs to do to secure the legacy, and we can save this for a longer conversation about this for a different day, because there's some very specific things that Trump needs to do, but they need to solve one of the big cases and reveal to the American people in a very transparent way who the perpetrators were. And I'll give you two examples of that: January 6th and the January 5th pipe bomber. If you can show the American people that it's not just something that we know who was behind January 6th, then we know who was behind the pipe bombing. If you can show us who it was by name, by agency, by funding, and you can put that person in prison, those people in prison, then the legacy of the Make America Great Again movement and President Trump's personal legacy will live long beyond President Trump's term in office. And by the way, I should note before I misread the numbers that I said earlier about Mar-a-Lago, slightly off. The point remains, though, the judge said Mar-a-Lago is only worth 18 to 30 million, which is laughable because clearly it's worth way more than that. In 2022, for example, Forbes and other real estate investors evaluated it at 350 million, which makes sense. It's a giant real estate. It's a club. Trump bought it in disrepair for 10 million and then he renovated it. So the idea that, I mean, think of the contrast, 18 to 30 million versus 350 million. Yeah, there might be a little political bias informing the judge's evaluation in the Letitia James case. Maybe just a little bias, just a little bias.